is iRacing.
We may have flicked over into February, but it doesn't mean that Daytona season is by any way, stretch or form over when it comes to racing. We've had 24 hours worth of action earlier on in the month, but as we hit February, there's still a Daytona 500 to come. But more importantly than either of those, this is where the SimRacing Republic makes their GT Open at the halfway stage of the season. You now find yourself at a track where it is, quote, endurance in terms of the calendar this time around. So no sprint, no master. It is just a pure 1.5 hours against the clock who can find themselves at the top of the sheet at the end of today's running. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you're watching around the world. My name's Jake Sperry, and alongside with me for today's action is Ozzy Puhaka. You got Christian Deploy, who is in the director's chair, and he's using the cameras provided by Dougie Beard. But when it comes to a circuit that is the world center of racing, and pretty much in January and February, this is the center of where racing takes its shape. If you are brand new to racing and you don't understand why Daytona is so feared and so revered, this is what your GSRC track guide can do to help you out.
Welcome to the Daytona International Speedway. While many oval fans associate this Central Florida track with mainly NASCAR, the road course has gained just as much worldwide fame thanks to it hosting motorcycles and sports cars for decades. In fact, the flagship road race, the 24 Hours of Daytona, has become a major draw for drivers of all disciplines, many eager to have a go at endurance racing. The stats make this place sound relatively simple, with 12 corners on the regular road circuit and 14 on the NASCAR version, both spread amongst 3.5 miles. Indeed, a majority of the lap is spent on the oval portion, where you fly along the notoriously steep banking. But it's easy to underestimate the challenge presented to the drivers. The infield portion begins with the scary kink entry of turn 1. Not only is it the fastest part of the track, but the transition from the banking to the flat tends to upset the car as you slow it down. There's also the bus stop chicane on the backstretch. Added in the 80s, this is a tricky piece of circuit that punishes a poor exit severely, with it leading back into the latter half of the oval. As you'd expect, the long periods on throttle mean that drafting tends to play a factor in the racing. It also means passing isn't usually too great of an issue if you have the pace to catch someone. The more difficult thing is managing to gap your opponent so that they don't ride in your slipstream once you get by. With half a century of endurance racing collected among these walls, it's not unfair to say that road racers have just as much claim to call Daytona home. Fans who come to watch certainly won't be disappointed by the high speeds and fantastic thrills it invariably provides each year.
Ozzy, this is a place with a lot of banking and a lot of history that is attached to it. A place that opened in 1959 and pretty much sets the tone for the 2026 racing season, as it does for every racing season.
It absolutely does, Jake. It's an honor to be here, as always, watching a race. So much history, as you said, with this place. It's surprisingly sneakily complicated. You look at the track map and you heard Joe Peak just talking about it, and you look at the track map and it looks very simple, like it looks mostly you're just going flat out, but that infield section is surprisingly sneakily complicated, especially turn 1, which can be highly technical, many people making mistakes there. You can look for lockups in the Rodriguez International Horseshoe, named after a Ferrari GT legend, and then you have that blast up to the oval, up to the banking, up to 33 degrees. That is unbelievable. You can just stand into it, and it's almost like climbing a sheer wall. It's a difficult hike to make it up there. So yeah, Jake, it's a wonderful venue for racing. It provides excellent racing as always, and who knows what might happen? We don't.
Well, anything can happen at Daytona, and a lot of people say that it's normally a sprint race out there when you go and battle because of the long drafting trains you get from turn 7 over to the Le Mans chicane and along the front stretch into turn number 1. That infield, which looks so plain, is actually really difficult between the Rodriguez International Horseshoe and the West Horseshoe at turn number 6. But let's start talking about championships, because there's a lot of championships that we've got to get through before the start of racing. And let's start with overall pro, where Ryan van der Grijp is in control, and in control by a fair margin after the opening 2 rounds. 25 points over Oye Hugo, who won last time out with great racing prowess at the Nürburgring. Norzwagi is in third ahead of Corbin, or with Corbin Lenaway, who is there tied on points with Daniel Mills and Michele Velazzi. They're in 6th position. Davide Pezzi is just 3 points behind that with Alessandro Torchio. Then Freyt Koek there in 9th position at 71 back. And Antti Terho then at 74 points adrift at the moment is currently in 10th. Aussie, story is going to be interesting as well for the teams in Pro.
Absolutely. 07 Racing up there in the lead, just 2 points ahead of Manatee Racing Pro. So they are pretty much neck on neck, as you so often see in Daytona. Impact Sim Sport in third and Enosis Esports in fourth, 21 and 33 points behind the leader, respectively. You got Absolute Motorsport Asalit in fifth, and Def SimRacing Pro with Antti Terho in 6th. You got Hyperion Racing in 7th, GD Dynamics in 8th, Lion GP in 9th, and Graphite Racing rounding out your top 10.
Yeah, they've done a really good job in terms of the Pro. Now let's go down a bit to Pro-Am, where Johan Neshev is proving to be the strongest at the moment. 35 points ahead of Niels Bokager in 2nd position. Sven Beber is then tied at 3rd with Stefan Jones, as Dan van Zutphen doing a good job for the commentators. Currently in 5th position, just 1 point behind of that. 2 adrift of that is Thomas Dunn with Michael Teichmann then in 7th position, ahead of Mika Herkstra with Mike Schmidt and Miroslav Sotorov then making up the top 10. They're tied 67 points adrift of Pro-Am. So now you start thinking about, okay, next stage is going to be important for them. And so too, what will be important to start talking about here, Aussie, is what the teams are doing in Pro-Am.
Absolutely. Negative delta by simgear.it in the lead with NJB Performance in 2nd, 10 points between them. But then you got this tight battle back for the 3rd position in team standings. Evolution SimSport Red, Manatee Racing Pro-Am, Backmarker Racing Green, and Blue Chip Racing, all separated by 16 points. You got Firefly Racing in 7th, Lion GP Academy in 8th, CSA in 9th, and 10 Absolute Motorsport Asalit Pro-Am team rounding out the top 10.
It's a quiet field when it comes to the AM division. There's a lot of drivers decided they wanted to jump in with a various level of pace, but Gareth McRae in control of that, ahead of Kevin Maillard and Ivan Loskotov, 2nd and 3rd. Luke Slotes is there in 4th position at 37 points back, with Marcel Nürnberg and Richie Chauhan then making up 4th, 5th and 6th. And believe it or not, it is those drivers who are 4th, 5th and 6th who are the only AMs out there. I'll quickly run through the teams AMs out there at the moment, because you've got Impact SimSport AM, Simmer Esports Racing ahead by 51, then Firefly E-Racing AM a ways away as it currently stacks up for the division. But Aussie, as far as we go today, this is round 3 of 6, and it's the halfway stage by the time that the season brings itself to a close with racing action today.
Yeah, it's a very traditional GT3 setup. You got an endurance race of 90 minutes. That is a classic GT3 format. You got 2 mandatory pit stops. So you come into the pit lane on the tri-oval twice, and you got a custom balance of performance. And we'll look at that more next. But yeah, very classic GT3 setup.
Now, they are fuel limited here today. They can only use 47% of a fuel tank, which means that it will force a two-stop strategy here today over this hour and a half. The ballast looks pretty much exactly the same as it did for the iRacing Daytona 24, 18 kilograms on the Lamborghini, 15 on the Porsche 911 GT3 R992. But the key here is every car, with the exception of the McLaren 720S, has been hit with a power reduction, and it's not much of a power reduction, but this is sort of curbing the high end so that no car is going to start walking down the road and basically having 5 or 6 Ks of an advantage.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's nobody doing the classic, what we call a body setup after a place in Finland, where you have a, for example, a Mercedes GT3 going faster than faster class cars on a straight line. So you are power limited, and it is very meticulously done to ensure that every car is more or less equal in terms of achievable performance, at least.
Yep, so who can achieve the best that they can, because practice, or warm-up so to speak, has just concluded here, ladies and gentlemen. So we will now take the opportunity to head over to your starting grid for today's racing action here from Daytona, and it is going to be an interesting grid as they stack up, because even though that you've got the GT3 pros in play, they are not on pole position. So you've got here Frank Cook, who is in control of this category right now, with Trevor Vavrovsky alongside Michele Velazzi, and Oye Hugo will be going from 4th. Then it's your championship leader, Ryan van der Grijp, who is there in 5th ahead of Davide Pezzi. Marcelo Caserta is 7th, with Corbin Lenaway 8th in class, ahead of Ryan Fuqua and Nick Davis, who make up possibly as things stand at the moment. So now we'll look over the page then, where you've got Dylan Platt and Nord Zwaggy with Diego Nicolas and Ale Torres. Camden Craft will have Alessandro Torchio in 16th in class. And then down at the back, Daniel Mills and Casper de Court. Ossi Puhaka then is here with your GT3 Pro-Am standings.
Absolutely, I am still here, not going anywhere. Ian Neshu starting out on pole in that class, with Sven Weber in front row alongside him, Niels Baukhage in 3rd, and Michael Teitman in 4th, Max Kraus in 5th, and Dan van Zutphen in 6th, with Alessandro Vanozzi in 7th and Sven Landgraf in 8th. You got Miroslav Sotirov in 9th position and Daniel Maggioni in 10th place. And 10 in 11th, it's Stefan Jones with Roberto Stefano Kovac in 12th, Marvin Baer in 13th, with Gillian Dimitrov in 14th, Thomas Seifert in 15th, with Jopi Simons in 16th, Mika Hoekstra in 17th, and Callum R. Jones rounding out the Pro-Am field with 18th place.
Just the 3 cars then in the AM category to talk about. Richie Chauhan in control of that, with Ivan Loskatov and Luke Sloats there making the field. They are pacing themselves through NASCAR 3 and 4 as they get themselves ready for action. Johan Neshev will have the pole position then for this and will lead them through. It's very rare, even in sim racing circles, to see a Pro-Am out-qualify all the pros, and Neshev's needed a lot of practice because he's got the SimGear GT Masters directly after this that he's got to get himself up to speed with, so he'll be lightning in a bottle. Green flag drops, and an hour and a half will start then here from Daytona. The chuck away towards turn number 1 is going to be critical, and how aggressive are you on the brakes? They look to funnel into line. Neshev's got control over Cook, but Trevor has got the run, a driver who came from NASCAR circles in iRacing to move over to do endurance, up into second as they now hit the Rodriguez International Horseshoe for the first time. Oh, one on the left. I think it's Nick Davis.
Oh yeah, Davis is out on the braking in the Horseshoe. Must have been contact already on the chicane as they funnel into the left-hander, and then onto the second Horseshoe. These scenes, ladies and gentlemen, these scenes, some of the best you have in racing. Full field of GT cars powering through these tight corners, neck on neck, side by side, and for the first time they're going into the oval, and I think it's still Neshu in the lead.
Yeah, Neshev's got control here and be very happy with this. Cook happy to follow in line as Pavlovsky, follows in line. Then it's Frank Cook. Hugo in 4th. You've got Velazzi 5th. Bever is 6th. Petsy 7th. In terms of where they stand overall, but their classes showing a very different story at the moment. A bit of side-by-side damage there on the front there of one of the Mustangs heading to the Le Mans chicane, so that's going to be doing no favours there for, I believe, Dylan Platt is the one who's struggling, and there's contact off the exit, and they're going to both lose time to both Dan van Zutphen and dragging it in the wall. Bang! Dylan Platt goes in harder, goes back down on the circuit, catches Sotorov with it. It's a massive accident, and if that has caused it in a way that we expect it, we might have troubles so early on in this race.
Yeah, meanwhile, out in the lead, you can see how Pavlovsky didn't go for the pass, instead just drafting with Neshu, the Pro-Am leader, just wanting to get away from this pack. And after seeing what we just saw, who can blame them?
Well, who can indeed, and here is your leader, Ryan van der Grijp. In terms of the championship, he gets a wonderful view of Beba versus Hugo out there just in front. He's got a bit of side-by-side right now with Davide Pezzi. A look at the stone face of Ryan van der Grijp out there. His expression, I don't think, ever changes when he goes out there and he races. He is confident out there as he sits behind the NJB performance car just in front, that Lamborghini Huracan that is sitting there of Sven Beba, that is going to be weighted down by 18 kilograms. That's the equivalent of having a large dog sat in the boot out there at the moment. And look at the front there, just behind the second of the NJB cars out there at the moment, just how damaged it looks on the front for Ryan Fuqua.
Yeah, that's not very aerodynamically efficient, I must say, and you can see him struggling as they get up to speed. It's here where it really starts hurting. It's not much, but you can definitely see 3 wide there heading onto the bus stop, and just nothing more you can do than be a passenger. Now it's gonna be interesting to see if he's gonna hang on until the first scheduled pit stop, or coming in early and taking that extra stop just to try and repair that. So far it looks like the pit stop might not actually be worth it.
No, and what's also reminding for drivers is 3 drivers could not take the start. Alessandro Torchio, Mika Herkstra and Ivan Loskatov. All of them got a ban in qualifying after towing to the pit and driving back out again. A big no-no in this series, so they were forced to start from pit lane as they go. Looking up then to Oye Hugo, who's having a good run. This is what happened to Nick Davis off the start, so he just loses it then on his own through the S's. The back steps out, and somehow there is a tiny checkup, but not one that causes a major amount of damage there. Davis gets flung into the barriers there on the left-hand side, and that pretty much says all you wrote about that incident then, as we follow with the Enosis car trying everything it can to move on up past Michele Velazzi.
Yeah, that little chicane you got after the first corner, it looks like an inconsequential corner, and in a hot lap it maybe is, but in a full field of racing cars, 2 wide, 3 wide, you're battling through. It's so difficult to keep yourself away from another car, and there he was just Davis was just giving a little bit too much space, as you can see a replay there of the of Nils Baukage, who also got spun out in the horseshoe. And just one of those incidents where you get a tiny contact, and these cars, despite having a traction control, despite having anti-lock brakes, when you go in the middle of the corner, the rear end gets so light, all the weight is in the front, and the car is teetering on the edge of balance, especially when you got no downforce at Daytona, that you can spin out so easily after a tiny bit of contact.
Now, this is going to be a really interesting position here between Pavlovsky and Neshev. Leader, oh, look at that view there of the grille of the AMG Mercedes there behind, from the rear of the AMG Mercedes in front of Neshev, who's got the fastest lap of the race in the back pocket. These two, leader of Pro-Am leads the race overall, leader of Pro just behind, and they will both have the same incentive. We don't want anyone in that next group to be along with us. It goes all the way back to Corbin Lenaway at the moment, and so they're trying to build this margin and say, if we can break away and they can't get organised behind, it makes our hour and a half so easy. It's a race one-on-one.
Exactly. Now I'm gonna be curious to see if Pavlovsky actually wants to take the lead at some point. whether they work together and draft together for the lead, or if it's also Trevor, being the wily old dog he is, that he actually wants to also, well,
Yellow
he
flag,
doesn't want to be
caution.
aggressive. Oh.
So safety car is going to be deployed then in the early stages of this race, and that is going to neutralize the field. And it's critical to note that this is a field that is now at this stage allowed to come in to the pits. There is Dimitrov and Sotorov who have got the black and orange mechanical flag. So I think something's happened to Yuli Dimitrov out there, and it might have been very early on in the lap where that has all gone wrong. So it looks like we might be able to get a replay here of exactly what's happened. So here's Yulian Dimitrov in the negative Delta Sim Gear car. Oh, he gets turned over Fuqua there on the front, and look at how that car slides around, bang, into the tyres. Very hard to extricate a car from there, Ozzy, and that's why we're under caution.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous position you're at the exit of the flat out braking into turn number 1. And definitely a reason to throw a caution for the race control here, doing an excellent job as always in SimRacing Republic. Now, what I was about to say is that whether Wawrowski is actually thinking about saving fuel behind Neshev and not wanting to make the pass, instead just being able to lift and coast that much more, while also using Neshev's pace to run away from rest of the field. Instead of working together, you just sort of half work together, but also use the advantage. But this is throwing fuel calculations into brand new light as well, because you're saving fuel behind the pace car. You're restricted to essentially the speed that your pit limiter allows.
Yes, you very much are. I think they are stuck into a mandatory 2-stop today rather than being able to save the fuel if they get a lot of cautions and go to a 1-stop out there. So I think they're looking around at this today going, if we save fuel, it might be that we just have to supple a little bit less in on the final stop of today's action. But they can pit as early as this if they have the damage, and it will count as a mandatory pit stop for all of these drivers. Now, because this has happened so early in the race and you get those natural breaks in the pack, anyone who had fallen off a group and had themselves not the greatest start of the race, they now have the ability to draw themselves back in, and I think that's really important. The group being led by Cook, Velazzi and Hugo, for example, will be really happy, and so too a driver up 5 who didn't have a great qualifying, Nozwagi, who's right up there in the Pro Championship, now has a chance to claw himself back in now onto the back of Corbin Lenaway.
No, yeah, absolutely. You essentially get a second chance is what you get. If you lost a lot of time in the start, if you had a bad start, or if you have a damaged car like we saw with so many, you essentially get a second chance, and there's still a lot of time remaining in this race is what you got to keep in mind. As you said, it's very, very early. So this is essentially resetting the field. Now I wonder what it does to this driver, because I know it's an oval saying, Jake, but often on the roadside as well, cautions breed cautions. So you get the pack all together again. We saw how tight it was and how lucky the field also was not to have a bigger accident in the spin out heading into the horseshoe. Now I hope they have sort of calmed themselves down a little bit during this caution, but knowing racing drivers, you know, it's always a bit of a 50-60.
Yes, so you got to turn around and look and say, is this field going to get energized by the fact that they're brought back together and want to be more aggressive and make an opportunity of it? Or are they going to be in a position where they realize, right, we need to calm down and keep ourselves steady? It's normally more of the first than the second, but there is a lot to think about. There have been good gainers up the field. Daniel Mills, by the way, up 13 spaces in the start of this race. He's had a wonderful get-go here on this one. Ali Torres up 8 out there, and Richie Chowan, the leader of GT3 AM, up 7 overall, up to 17th. So Chowan having a good run. Now, not many drivers are taking pit cycle here. It is Trevor Wawrowski and Trevor Wawrowski only deciding to come down the lane. He will be followed in by Camden Craft in the number 46. So only a handful of drivers deciding they need to come in. Ryan Fuqua will certainly be one of them, because when you're looking around at today's action, there's no fast repair. He needs as much repaired on the front as they can. So you're looking around, why would you pit from this position? You lose the track position out there, but critically, you gain fuel mileage. You don't need as much at the final stop. So someone like Vavrovsky here, Ozzy, you think's going to have to try and jump up through the order with pace.
Yeah. So that is something I'm very curious about. You look at the weather, it's 22 degrees Celsius in the air and 27 Celsius on the track. That's 71 and 80 Fahrenheit. Respectively for the metrically challenged out there. Winds at 8 miles an hour, 12 kilometers per hour, so it's pretty much perfect racing weather, I would say. It's pretty much the same as here in Finland right now, only that there is not a minus in front of the Celsius.
No, we forgot that little bit, didn't we, in terms of how that goes for you. But right now, it is going to be a sit and understand as far as they are looking at this moment. They know they've got to keep the tyre temperature up as far as they go. But this is a chance to really settle down and say who's where with what. Because you've got the AMG Mercedes that is 1 and 2. The Mustang of Velazzi in 3rd. The Aston Martin of Hugo in 4th. Then the AMG Mercedes of Van der Rijp. They're in 5th. Bebber has the first Lamborghini 6th on the road. And then the Corvette of Davide Pezzi, therefore Absolute Motorsport Acerlith. So they will be looking to try and jump up, and you've got a lot of different strategy that's going to come into play as they go. Because it's so early as well, this will extend their first stint a tiny bit, but they've got to make sure they get that first pit stop in before that first entry window closes. But with the lights off on top of the pace car here, Ozzy, it looks like we'll be going back to green at the end of this lap.
Yeah, and you can see the drivers as well trying to wiggle side by side, getting some heat into the tires. At that pace, it does the square root of nothing at all, but they're still trying. So yeah, this is mostly, funnily enough, you need to go a little bit slower to get the heat up into the front tires and go even more aggressive on the tire warming. This is mostly warming up the rear tires, but it's doing something which helps under braking into the first corner. It's always going to be very, very difficult because you're no longer on fresh tires. You've run through one heat cycle. It's a short heat cycle, but it's still a heat cycle. So the car will feel a little bit weird, a little bit different going into turn number 1. So look out for guys overshooting their braking into that and into the horseshoe as well, which is going to be a very precarious situation, let's put it that way.
I think it will be. Cold tyres, cold brakes on a restart is always the biggest worry, and you can't extend out wide with the new track limit system that's in play here at Daytona to stop drivers overcommitting to the right-hand side of the circuit, which I think is a very welcome addition here. BMW M2 safety car dives down left, so Johan Neshev, the Pro-Am, continues on with the lead then of this race. He will go at the green zone and will now get himself underway. Now, don't expect much overtaking here on this start. A bit of overlap there between Bebber and Pezzi as they'll run in towards turn number 1 with an hour 15 remaining in this race. Oh, it's busy down the inside there as Velazzi gets a big run, gets no run off the exit of Velazzi's turn.
Oh, no.
In front of the field, everyone out of the way, bang! 1, 2, 3, 4 all there, and suddenly scatter everyone.
Wow, and there's a rejoin and just about manages to avoid. There's one car on the outside of the hairpin, one car on the inside of the hairpin, but that could have been an absolute calamity, and somehow it was only a regular accident. So once again, the field of drivers, both skilled and lucky, and here we have a spin. Did he save it? Yeah, he did. He did a 360. That's amazing.
Not behind though, because we've got more drivers in trouble trying to get themselves going. Dan van Zutphen is one of them who's been caught out. A manic restart here from this circuit, and another yellow flag, unsurprisingly, is going to come out because they're now crashing as they come up onto the oval banking here. Ale Torres is caught up there, so too Diego Nicolas then. Norzwagi, I think, just about got away with it. They will be able to regain the positions out there that they need to, but my oh my, we said it, that cautions have the ability to make a field anxious. That wasn't anxiety, that was a pure riddled case of panic.
Yeah, that was pure terror, absolutely. It's like, you know, you hear a knock on your door and it's the TV license guy. That's the similar level of terror that you just felt right there. And here we see Michel Villatsiten in the number 75, just getting caught out in the middle, having to avoid a little bit. They just ran out of space, and he was trying to roll the car out of the racing surface, but wasn't unfortunately able to avoid all contact. That car is toast. You can put some beans and butter on it and enjoy it, but it's not gonna make a race car anymore.
No, it's not. And so I think this is going to be a really difficult scenario for about half the field here, who in some way, shape or form got caught up in all of it. So let's just understand where the field now is. So it's Neshev, Cook, Hugo, Corbin Lenaway is up to 4th. Then it's Marcelo Caserta. Nudzwagi is now 6th. And then you've got Max Krauss, who was 17th on the restart. He's now 7th. Langgraf is there in 8th, Beber down to 9th, and then Diego Nicolas will now be the driver 10th overall. Not shocked to see a driver in, so that's Van der Grijp, who's making that call for Manatee Racing Pro. Get out of the middle of this field and keep going. So Van Zutphen up to speed. Look, one goes in front, cold tyres through the kink. You think it's an easy corner that's flat. It's not. If the rears are cold, you need to lift.
Yeah, you absolutely do. You absolutely do. And that's the thing, when you lift in a high-speed corner, the weight goes to the front very, very quickly. But if you try to do it flat out, you're just essentially going too fast. The car doesn't have the grip. So you kind of have to, it's a balancing act, and those can be very terrifying situations. They are underrated in their terrifyingness, the almost flat out corner. They usually flat out corner, which is not flat out if the conditions change. And in this case, we had the condition change with the cold tires effectively and a full pack of cars. Don't forget about that. That essentially eats away at your front downforce, because these cars are not known to produce dirty air, which means turbulent air, as much as Formula cars, as much as open wheelers with their big wings, but they still do that. You're still gonna understeer behind another car, and here you can see Van Notziten. Oh.
How do you avoid everyone? There, the car goes around not once but twice, and the 199 just about saves it. It all actually kicked off there through the start by the aggressiveness at the front by the likes of Cook and Caserta, who are right up there at the point. In fact, you could say as well, with how they were just trying to run themselves through that section, a number of cars out of position. Then from trying to avoid the start. Michele Velazzi, 75, I think was the biggest catalyst of all of that, as he's down in the pits still stuck. But you look actually what that has done for those who took that pit stop early. We talk about how Wawrowski was down to the back of the field, about 35th. He's now 18th.
Yeah. And crucially, he was able to avoid all of that, because that was one of the risks with his strategy. You pit under the caution, and what you gain is, well, you effectively get time-wise a free pit stop. But the problem is, because he was the only one to come into the pit lane out of the leaders, what that means is he's going to be shuffled all the way to the back of the pack. And not only does that mean he's going to have a lot of overtaking to do before he gets the advantage of not having to pit when the others do, but also he's under risk because he's in that huge gaggle of cars. He's behind everybody, but he was thankfully able to avoid all contact. And that means he essentially gained a lot of positions. Here's Sven Weber now, the 196. And yeah, you can just see him just about able to avoid everybody here. And that was, I think that was right after he did a 360 onto the second horseshoe.
Yes, and also right as the safety car was called. So everybody was having that moment going onto the banking. They needed that safety car called, otherwise you were going to get a jammed field, and that banking does bring crashes back onto the apron. That's why oval racing works in a certain way, but it has put a lot of emphasis on everyone else in this field to just try and avoid being uberly aggressive this quick into running. We do have more cars down on the lane. Davide Pezzi then taking service by the looks of it. And so now you're just getting these small pockets here, a car here, a car there, that's trying to extend out. And actually, this is going to be really important to talk about here. Neshev wouldn't have seen much, if any, drama behind him. He would have seen a lot of smoke. Corbin Lenaway, for example, who's third in the GT3 Pros, the front is looking like it's about to fall off, like it's an Aussie sketch, and it was not definitely a car that's made out of cardboard derivatives. But you got to look around. Noah Zwaggy, the front right, completely exposed at the moment on his 07 Mustang. So you are looking around. This will be a field where cars will be walking wounded.
No, yeah, it will absolutely be. It's about damage limitation, as it always tends to be in races like this. And you always say to yourself before the race, you look at other Daytona races, these are experienced guys, most of them anyway. They know how racing goes in fast circuits. They know how racing goes in tight GT3 packs, which is you need to survive the opening laps. It's always said that you can never win a race in the first corner, but you can definitely lose it there. And since this is not Monaco, that statement is still accurate. You cannot win it in the first corner. But the trouble with racing drivers and the trouble with racing, Jake, is that we sorta kinda tend to forget all about those good promises, all about those nice words once the green flag flies and you put the throttle down. Once you get alongside another driver, you see another driver in front of you, and that is like a red flag. You have to get past that guy. And once the racing gets heated, somebody maybe wrongs you even a tiny little bit, you sort of get into that racing mood. You start to get aggressive. And before long, you find yourself in the middle of something that you absolutely do not want to find yourself in.
When a racing driver is wrong, they've got a memory of an elephant. When they do something wrong, they have a memory of a goldfish. It is as simple as that sometimes when racing comes to play, but they will know that this is just time that's being taken off the clock. This is making life easier for everybody at this moment, with Johan Neshev in control of this field. He's only had to drive, I think, about 3 laps in anger here in this race. That's making his life a lot easier. He's got less chances to be overtaken at the front. The lights are off on the BMW M2 safety car, which means we will be going back to green flag racing here on what will be the 10th lap started then of this SimRacing Republic GT Open in a field that has been so used to sprint and master. The first endurance race, well, it's turning into a long slog of an hour and a half as far as the early runnings of racing are going. Cook then leading the GT3 Pros with Oye Hugo behind him, and then Corbin Lenaway, who will sit then in that 3rd position. Everyone is going to get themselves ready, and everybody knows that this is going to be as strong of a result as many will need. Neshev will wait then for the restart zone, which will be when the drop of the green flag goes, and they'll get themselves back to racing action here from Daytona International Speedway. And it looks like, again, Cook with a little feint over to the outside, lean on the brakes, and back there it's Swaggy making big moves around the outside. He'll go and get there to 5th. Caserta with a half slide.
Yeah, and let's see if they make it through here. No, they don't.
There's just Marcelo Caserta who goes around. There's a second car. No, they're going to be 2, 3, 4. Herkstra just about avoiding Casper de Court, who is, of course, one of the main organisers of the Ivor Endurance Series. He's in the middle of that one as well. Another handful of cars that are brought into play. The cold conditions, the cold tyres, they are really causing havoc for a number of drivers out there on these restarts. We've already ticked 25 minutes off the clock here in this race. We're going to struggle to get many laps done here in terms of this. They'll head over out then towards or out of the West Horseshoe now and over towards the next section of banking, but clearance needed then for those nearer the front, as it's the gap now from Teichmann and across. Van der Graaf, 13th position at the moment, will be happy that he's been able to avoid all of that, and the focus will now be just generating any form of heat.
No, yeah, because now you need to get the heat into the tires, and it's sorta does get into the tires on this banked oval section, because unlike a pure straight line, you do get some heat in there. Now, do you want to go for that move? Nah, he's holding back. He's being very, very smart here. And just like on his left-hand side, you can see in the picture, on the right-hand side from our vantage point, he's already thinking about box, box, box at some point, saving fuel.
5-second penalty for Alessandro Venozzi for passing before the line. That was on the second restart. There is also a 5-second penalty for Davide Pezzi for invalidating what we call the 5-second rule, which is in the pit lane, you can only be in the boxes for 5 seconds. We watch with Van der Bruyne at this moment, really trying to settle in and see, can I get myself in place? 13th in his class, it has to be said out there with the way that he's trying to work through. This is in about the mid-20s right now, 26th position. That would have been for Van der Bruyne to get that clearance from Tokyo. It's a long way to the next group in front, and draft is critical around this place. Look at that side-by-side between Marvin Bear there and Trevor Vavrovsky trying to get through.
Vavrovsky round the outside through the kink.
Marvin Bear gets turned around then, and that contact no good with Niels Balkager. Then as the turn comes around, in fact, I'll correct myself, it was Daniel Mills down the inside that made it, and Bear right now is going to be looking for hibernation in the next couple of moments to try and get back up to speed, because at the moment he'll be driving around, well, like it's February or March, he's just been woken up.
Oh, Jake, those punts are getting unbearable.
Correct. Corbin Lenaway, third in his class, trying to deal with the Enosis Aston Martin in front as they work together. Oye Hugo, the Andorran, then in front, trying to give that chase. Swaggy there, they've dropped Sven Baba, so it is 5 away at the front, and Corbin Lenaway's got the toughest challenge of anyone. Hold with damage the gap that's there.
Yeah, so you can just see Lenaway there just trying to hold on, trying to catch on to. Here we see the restart, and that's even Loskutov in the amateur class, AM class, and
oh my,
catching up to the pack, and then having a little bit of spin on the tri-oval in front of the big crowd, mind you. That's the grandstand of 300,000 people staring as you make a spin at the restart. So that's not an ideal situation at all. But crucially was able to drive away with it. No damage, no harm done, no contact. So, you know, live on to fight another day, and hopefully he's gotten maybe Jake Sperry's or indeed Ted Lasso's advice and has the memory of a goldfish on that one.
Yeah, that's tough, but ultimately it now puts him third in his class, with Chawan almost 6 seconds clear of Slotes then in that second position. Lenaway happy as far as it goes at this stage. We'll take another look. So this is Roberto Kovac here, who sees all of this going in front. There's one spin and bang, there's the contact. Kovac, the second absolute motorsport car to go around, and then suddenly it's just Skittles at that point. That is a heavy hit late.
Hold your brakes when you're spinning. That's a pet peeve, but when you're spinning like that, okay, you have spun in the middle of the track, your instinct is try and get away of it. It's like walking over a road, crossing a road. Your instinct is to get over onto the other side, away from the danger as soon as possible.
Ball spinner, bang, Chawan, it's your leader in GT3 AM, in the wall, out of the Le Mans chicane.
How's he done that?
Oh my! Nick Davis has almost put it in the wall, trying to avoid it. He's trying to get up to speed. He's just about been able to. He's just dropped it on its own, because we have to talk about it, Ozzy. Anti-cut curves at that chicane are nightmarish. You can see he's over the first part, he hits the second, and then bang, he's just gone over the last set, and he's just got no grip.
But you see here, look, he wasn't rejoining, he was holding the brakes, he was holding stationary. Now, he was outside of the racing line there, true, but he was holding the brakes, and that's how everyone was able to avoid him. And that's just what I was talking about. When you have spun, the hurrying stops. You're no longer in any sort of hurry. I know in a racing driver's mind you just want to get going as soon as possible, but once you spin, your speed goes to zero, you're no longer in a hurry. Hold the brakes and make sure that you are predictable to everybody behind, because if you're moving about, you're not giving a chance for anyone to avoid you behind you, and you're not doing yourself any favors by getting hit with another car after your initial accident. So yeah, hold the brakes, but here we see Wawrowski, who's somehow been able to avoid all of this, despite making moves such as pitting to get himself into the last position, more or less, and going around the outside of the kink. So he's been racing, and he's been racing well, and he's been racing clean. Let's see where this leads.
Yeah, he's done brilliantly in this race to give himself a fantastic platform. That early pit stop out the way is going to help. That's not, though, getting all over those anti-cut curves. He'll have to slow it down a bit over there, and Ale Torres, I think, is going to have respite with the help of Max Kraus there just in front, and Diego Nicolas, then, who will be the ones there hunting and chasing. Well, that's a mile off the road down there on the inside, and that's Davide Pezzi down in pit lane. So those are changes that are there. Here's Dan van Zutphen. This is going to be looking for a chance to go and make something happen here on the recovery up the order, pushing along the straight then over towards turn number 1, straight down the inside of Stefan Jones, and for the moment it is going to be Stefan who in the back marker 126. We'll see the 179 Manatee car just jump on through with a little bit of damage actually to the front left.
Yeah, just a tiny bit of damage, but able to hold to the pace decently well so far. Now you can see there Danten working his way through the kink, and it's no longer quite as difficult as it was before. You can see it pretty much flat out there. Then the car moving and dancing about, getting it nice and turned in. Again, it's so easy to lock up your brakes, miss your braking spot. It feels like you're braking so early in the infield, but in fact, if you try to squeeze your braking zone just a little bit later, you can lock up the brakes, you absolutely can, or you just go wide when there's no grip. The surface of Daytona always feels like you're running on marbles, which half the time you are. Now here's Michael Teichmann, and let's see what Teichmann is able to do into the bus stop. Probably more or less the same move, down the inside, or does he wait to the main straight?
Well, Teichmann here, the Mexican driver, who is trying to do everything to keep this race somewhat in the back pocket of the 135, is now looking around at this and saying, okay, I want to get by Jones because Dan van Zutphen managed that, so why can't I? As they go, Beba then going to be looking at a change. This is against Norswaghi, who started to fall off the back of the front four. Comfy pass into turn 1, and so the Lamborghini with that wonderful shape of that Huracan proving that's in. 5-second penalty comes in for car 16. That's Daniel Mills then for the contact that was had, so that's going to hurt then in that one. And look who's getting the fastest lap right now. It's car 78, Ryan van der Grijp, who is now starting to hunt down places if he can in this one.
Yep, indeed he does, and we'll see how fast he's able to get up to the front. A 143.932. That's the first driver to go into the 144s here in this race. Now that is only a tenth faster than Free Cuckoo, only 2 tenths faster than Ian Neshu in the lead of the race, but you can see Grijp just essentially stuck in this pack. He's stuck in this pack right now. Now he's getting the draft too, but you have to be cautious in this situation, because after these two cars you get a lot of free space. That's true, but do you want to get into that space yet? Or do you want to utilize the draft for maybe 1 and 2 laps? See if the pack's pace is enough to catch the guys in front. So you have to make these decisions. Don't go for it. Don't do a risky pass. Instead, only go for the pass if you see it's absolutely there, if you're absolutely faster. Here he's able to utilize and get a nice double draft down onto the tri-oval, whereas if he went for the pass on the, let's say, infield or into the bus stop, he would have been slowed down instead. So this is already, just this draft alone is half a second gain down the tri-oval.
I think you're seeing the big difference now that drivers want to start chucking it in. Wawrowski, by the way, through on Max Kraus, and now look at this for a bit of a move along the main straight. Van der Grijp sees Hoekstra then have Tokyo try and go around the outside. The 07 car really trying to work for it. No line on the exit of turn 1 through the S's to that international horseshoe. So Hoekstra's covered one. Van der Grijp's going to take advantage though. Lunge into the corner. Big late apex needed to get it sorted. Drive off the exit. They'll be too wide heading towards the King. Hoekstra's going to have to back out of this one and does so. So one Dutchman gets by another. Van der Grijp now on the back of Alessandro Tokyo, and those two will try and play leapfrog up the order.
Yeah, so you saw the move being done, and you saw Ryan thinking, okay, well, I have to follow that move as soon as possible to get the draft that I want. And now they are working together. Now they are in a very, very good position where essentially you can utilize the pace and you can utilize your speed to try and get those positions one by one. As you can see, Free Cuckoo there just absolutely dancing over the curbs, those anti-cut curbs. And they are, yeah, as you said earlier, we have to talk about the anti-cut curbs in Daytona. They are, well, essentially what they are almost landmines in one sense, where if you cut them just a little bit too much, they are so steep, they are so rugged, they are so rough that they can very easily not only ruin your car but ruin your entire day. So going through that bus stop at such speed with so little downforce, it's like treading a needle. The track looks wide, but the actual line you can use is so narrow.
It is. We've got Nuzwagi, by the way, in the pits. That is a scheduled pit stop here with 53 minutes to go. So couldn't last any longer than that on a first take. So we'll be looking at that at about 23 minutes if it stays green for that final stop out there. And it might just be down to placement and positioning as we take a look on board the Negative Delta by SimGear.it driver Johan Neshev. Negative Delta, Bulgarian-based team, because SimGear, their main sponsor, Bulgarian-based, but have a lot of different places to ship all of their equipment around Europe out there at the moment. So it's a wonderful group, and actually that national scene that is going on there at the moment in Bulgaria is huge at the moment. They are starting to get those big drivers, Aussie, the same way that you talk about Finland's got a great scene, that Germany's got a great scene, that France suddenly is starting to put up a lot of great prototype drivers. You're soon going to be seeing Bulgaria's great in GT spec.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, you can see the rise of sim racing all over Europe, in some countries that you didn't think about before. Look out for places like Croatia, that's gonna come up soon. Estonians are gonna start putting up even more drivers. Lithuanians as well. We've already seen Lithuania as well, and they're coming into the pit lane.
Oh, this is going to be aggressive on the lane. Remember, it's just 88 kilometers an hour. Oh, got side by side in the pit lane. Contact. Beber and Lenaway then are going to have to scrap for their box in the transit lane. This is going to be awkward between them, and critically, Corbin Lenaway's box is going to be first, so he can jump down into lane there as they go through. If it was the other way around, one of them would have had to hit the brakes. Everybody jump in except, of course, car 3 Vavrovsky.
Yeah, and one of the Manatee cars there coming in, didn't quite see who he was, just missing his pit lane, having to reverse. You saw it in the front of your screens on the right-hand side, the green and black car just missed his braking pit box by a little bit, missed the braking zone, and had to reverse, and that's 2 or 3 seconds lost easily.
Now, Vavrovsky is in a very dominant position right now in the GT Dynamics number 3. He will realise as he looks around at the gap he's got of 5 seconds to Camden Craft. Van der Grijp currently about 9 seconds adrift, that he's just got to start building this margin and working with it. It's all on his side at the moment for final stops at the end of this race. Loskotov as well, by the way, in the pits for GT3 AM. So you're looking around at it and you're going, well, if this one stays green the entire way, drivers like Neshev and Cook and Hugo and Beber, they're going to all have to try and give themselves as much of a position to go out there and do what they need to. In saying that, on the stops, Freight Cook's had a nightmare stop, and it's now Neshev and Hugo who have broken away. Lenaway is then in 3rd, and Beber then into 4th.
Yeah, that changes things by quite a lot indeed. So I think it was Cook actually, yeah, in that green and black car, which was having to wiggle its way back into the pit box, missing the pit box, then you have to reverse. You sort of kind of have to get the car going once again because of the traction control. You probably have to override it, and then you reverse a little bit. You realize, okay, it's still not enough. We can't work on the car. You're not on the pit box. You have to reverse again. You have to hit a very specific box. And if you go too far in front of that, if you try to essentially run over the lollipop guy, is what we call it, the member of the pit crew holding the stop sign, which is shaped like a lollipop, hence the lollipop guy, for those uninitiated out there. So yeah, if you run in too far in front of that, yeah, you're going to lose a lot of time.
Well, we might need to go to Corbin Lenaway, because as Van der Rijp's there, look at this, as they go through. Bebber had to force his way through into the Le Mans chicane, and now Lenaway with the damage can't do anything about Frank Cook, who's decided just to go and say, look, I'm going to jump it down the inside. Now, some may question his strategy, but I say hold up, let him cook.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thankfully, we're not in New Vegas. So, yeah, it's... let's see what Cuckoo does here. Now, I think the problem with Freak in this situation, you gotta be a little bit frustrated with yourself. It's an easy mistake to make. Yeah, it happens to everybody at some point. You're gonna miss your pit stop at some point. And it's so easy to do because you're going down the pit lane speed limit speed. You're speed blind from going down from 180 miles an hour to what is effectively 50 miles an hour. So you're speed blind and you think, oh, I'm just gonna brake on a dime. But you don't, because that pit lane has no grip. And then you make that mistake, you lose a lot of time, you lose sight of the battle that you were in, and that you sort of, in your mind, you belong in that battle. And now you just try and make up those positions as quick as possible. And that's when mistakes can happen, but that also can lead to some of the finest drives that we have seen. And also, I gotta mention this. Look at Webber's car. Well, you can't look at it anymore, we're looking at the rear of it. And that's better in some people's opinion. Between those rims and those bright headlights that he's got on, those night lights, effectively, it is quite a sight. It is quite a sight.
Yeah, the NJB Performance Lamborghini looks great, but what will also look great is this down to the inside. Cook's not holding back. And again, down the inside at turn one, and door open! Corbin Lenaway chucks one down in and says, that one I will have. Now Noor Swaggy wants to try and get himself into the picture, but won't find a lane at the International Horseshoe. It goes to show here in GT Open running, you cannot leave a door open. You leave the door half ajar and you might as well get the entire team running through. That's a lot of understeer there from Sven Bebber, and so Swaggy had a half chance. Again, overcooked through the corner. You're starting to see the difference here between Pro and Pro-Am, the types of mistakes being made.
Yeah, Bebber, and also Bebber, in the previous lap, he was leading this pack, so he was in clean air. So you also saw the difference between clean air and dirty air. Now he was right behind two cars in that turbulent air, not having as much front downforce. And in a car like Lamborghini, that's especially important to get all the front downforce you can, because the engines, mind you, it's in the middle, it's not in the front. So you don't have as much weight in there as is. And Van Rijp, meanwhile, gets another position as we get a pit stop. And here you can see, coming into the bus stop, Webber trying to get a position done, cannot do it, and loses about a second of time instead.
Yeah, Hoekstra's in, Torquio is also in. These are the drivers who pitted under the first safety car then. So you've also got Casper de Court making that pit stop as well. So they are looking at this going, we're probably going to need to make another one. We'll probably have to do it at about 15 minutes left in the race. That's probably where they're staring down the barrel at this moment. So that will be a splash and dash for them. But it is still a very long transit around here. They'll be looking around and saying, well, we're going to lose about 40 seconds here down the lane if we look to get it back. Bebber then third in class as it currently stands, 5.7 behind Johan Neshev. And here is Max Kraus going out there to try and get himself into play. And at the moment, he's doing all right here. He's got Michael Teichmann there just in front, who looks like he's just stolen the position away. Stefan Jones leading this little train at the moment, which is in and around 20th in the overall.
Yeah. But one thing I gotta mention here, we talk about these cars and how they look. We talk about Webber's car. that Evolution Sim Sport machine, it's just an absolute gem. It's just an absolute gem to look at.
Ooh.
Gunmetal, and then you got that paler gray and that red stripe in between. Yeah, it's not very unique, but it stands out in such a good way, and especially on that Mustang, it just looks so brilliant. I'm sorry I'm gushing over this paint job a little bit, but it is such a good one, as we see Max Krause proudly speeding it all around this Daytona International Speedway. The sports car configuration, of course, as we see Wawrowski making his last pit stop with 45 minutes remaining. That's just perfect.
I don't think it's his last, but I do think it's his second scheduled pit stop. So he will have all of his mandatory required pit stops out of the way. That's going to be important to note. But they will look around at it and go, well, how much am I going to need at the end of this race? Because he only had a 15-second gap. Ryan van der Grijp has stayed out. Here is Krause side by side and off the lane. Hey, that's going to be a little bit of argy-bargy going over towards turn one. Swaggy there watching on as Corbin Lenaway and Sven Beber. I think at this case, if they're going to have any more contact like that, they might as well ask each other to be each other's Valentines in a couple of weeks. Here comes Swaggy down to the inside. Door has to be left open by Beber. Good move.
Yeah, very good move. He saw that Beber was focusing on the car ahead, so heated in that battle. You got the red mist all over your eyes with both of those drivers, and Swaggy just saw what we saw is that okay, there was a door open because Beber was trying to get the run on the exit, just maximized, trying to catch all the way back up to the car in front. And so Swaggy was like, hey, there's a door open. Guess what? I'm gonna dive into it. I have belief and I have trust in my brakes. And he was also kind of playing peacekeeper, because putting a car between those two might not be the worst thing possible at this point.
Cold tyres for Wawrowski. He'll fall to the back of this group as both Diego Nicolas and Ale Torres there, both of the Enosis Aston Martins, make their way by. That's pretty easy for them, and they've lost contact with Landgraf out there, so that's going to really be difficult for them. And look at this, they'll go side by side, the two teammates here. That stops any attempt at a move. Torres then makes the comfortable pass, and they'll realise, look, if I'm quicker on this run, we can now play our game of leapfrog, and Wawrowski cannot hold in the early stages of this stint. Once his tyres hit their level, they're good. Now in comes Vanozzi, now in comes Van der Grijp to make their stop. So where does that leave the likes then of those who are left? I think this should put Johan Neshev back in control of the race, and it will do with 42 minutes to go.
Yep, so Neshev has control for now. Let's see how long that lasts as Ryan Van der Grijp comes out of the pit lane. The pit speed limit continuing a little bit longer than we're used to here at Daytona. It used to be absolutely terrifying to exit the pit lane when the pit lane speed limit stopped at the end of the tri-oval section essentially, and you had to just go flat out through that first corner with cold tires. Very narrow space. You saw a lot of accidents there. So definitely a good upgrade that they've done to this circuit now. Let's see how fast the Manity car is able to get some heat into those tires and how fast he's able to find that pace once again. The car's gonna feel heavy and you're on cold tires. This is a very precarious position, and you don't have too much time to essentially try and, pardon the pun, it's gonna be terrible to get into the grips with this car, cause you got cars all around you too. You got cars ahead of you, you got cars behind you, and we saw what happened then with the earlier pit stop, where you essentially can get stuck in a pack if you don't get up to pace quickly enough. So yeah, this is a crucial point, and crucial point not only to get back up to speed quickly, but to also avoid mistakes.
Well, he'll look at Trevor Wawrowski, who's only 3 cars down the road, will Van der Grijp, and he'll say, that's my target, because he's the leader of those on the same strategy. So let's get some sense then here at just over halfway. Johan Neshev leads. Oye Hugo in second, leading GT3 Pro for the second. Oh, mistake by Neshev. He runs wide, and that opens the door up for Hugo here to try and have a go. I don't think he'll quite get there in the number 12 here from Enosis. Thinking about the inside. No, Neshev's just covered it, but that's your warning, Mr. 181, Johan. You can't do that mistake. too often. Cook third, then it's Zwagi and a group with Beba and Lenaway, and then you got Landgraf, Torres and Vavrovsky, who's got back through on Diego Nicolas now. So this is where you're looking around at these drivers and going, well, how much time am I going to have? How much gap am I going to sit down with? And I think this is really important that these two work together and give themselves that final stint. Neshev has been trying to win this one basically as couch commander at the front.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not a bad place because you're putting a lot of things into your own hands and not having to trust anybody, as we can see Van Otsiten heading to the bus stop, and this is gonna be a spin. Yep, it's gonna be a spin. Oh, and a tiny tap into the tire barrier. Now that shouldn't do too much damage. It was pretty much nose on, so at most a tiny bit of aerodynamics, but it being damaged there, but that could have been so much worse. It is still bad, because not only do you lose time with the spin, you also lose all the momentum that you would normally have, and that carries a penalty all the way down the long tri-oval and into turn number 1, which is when you can finally say that, okay, now I'm no longer losing time due to that error. And it's also gonna do no favors to your tires. So that's just a very unfortunate thing, and it looks like a very innocent situation, but that can cost you upwards of easily 10 seconds in time lost.
Ale Torres isn't going to fight this one. He's going to let this one go up high. He knows that Vavrovsky is flying, and through down the inside goes the pass. But I do want to go back to those tyre bundles out there, as there's some wonderful side-by-side for Corbin Lenaway. Then Anur Zwagi. Zwagi down to the inside is going to get the pass done. Then here at the International Horseshoe, day for Corbin Lenaway and Impact SimSport, where the impact's clearly been on the front. But I do want to go back to those tyre bundles out there at the moment here, because Ozzy, it's quite simply put, in iRacing, there's no give in the tyre bundles, they're concrete reinforced.
No, there isn't that much. So yeah, they are very tough things to hit. You don't want to hit those. Well, you don't generally want to hit any solid object with your car. Generally speaking, that is, not the track surface, but especially those tire bundles. And another problem is that because they are so small, you're only ever gonna hit a part of your car with it. So, for example, if you go side first into it, it's almost better to hit a long, nice, smooth wall than to hit something like that. Because the first impact usually leads to a secondary impact with the same barrier. The car's gonna bounce unpredictably, and that's putting a lot more force into one part of your car, which is not what you want. It's like taking a flat back bump in wrestling. You have to spread your arms, and you have to spread the impact. In the same way, if you're gonna hit a wall with your car, the pro tip for all of you looking to hit a wall with your car, try to spread the impact. Try to go, for example, side first, so the entire side hits the wall laterally instead of just a small part of it.
Yeah, you're trying to disperse your energy the best that you possibly can, and well, you could excuse the first quarter of this race for being a Royal Rumble of sorts out there today, as at the moment move made. Niels Boekhager down the inside there for NJP against Diego Nicolas, who I think's in struggle street at the moment for Enosis here. Those drivers who are out of position after the big shuffle of the opening stage of the race, they're getting back in line. Dan van Zutphen, one of them. Ryan van der Rijt is about to catch that next group as well. And you've also got to keep in mind that they're doing 44.2s at the moment, Van der Rijt and Van Zutphen and the likes of Trevor Vavrovsky. Leader at the moment last time around, Johan Neshev, 44.4, so they are still slightly closing that gap in, and you keep on trying to give yourself as much of a target as you can. So you would look around at current pace levels and say that Neshev and Hugo, they want to have their final stop and see the final splash and dashes from drivers like Van der Rijt and also from the likes of Trevor Vavrovsky, and go, I hope we've got at least 2 seconds of lead.
Yep. Indeed, because if you don't have those 2 seconds of lead, you're gonna get the guy behind drafting you. That draft is so important here. It's something that makes or breaks your race almost, utilizing it effectively, being able to get the toe down the straight line without being hampered in the corners. That is the dream scenario, as we can see Max Krausten running wide at the exit of the bus stop. Yeah, very nicely held.
Well, that's tough for Max Kraus, because that will leave him vulnerable to Daniel Mills through that section, but that's what you've got to have the concern about as you go through that. You catch the curb on the outside, and so, look at that. You like the idea of seeing a bit of an engine radiator out there. That's how close they're going to start pushing there as Daniel Mills, who, I love this actually in iRacing. You can represent a lot of different nations out there, not necessarily your own. He's saying basically his iRacing license, he represents Christmas Island.
Oh, that is absolutely lovely. That is absolutely lovely, and there are people living in Christmas Island. Not just sure many of them are doing iRacing, but yeah, you can represent any nation you want. Usually, you are representing your own, and I do like that we have these actual nations being represented, so you can see the nationality of drivers. Because sometimes you'd have to guess in the previous times. For example, when you had drivers from the Benelux region. And you try to tell if someone is from Belgium, Netherlands or Luxembourg based on the name alone. So you kind of had to guess at times. You had your own clubs sometimes, like Finland and France would have its own club, and Italy, for instance. But you also had a lot of the combined clubs. So it's great that you can finally represent your own nation in your license as well. And here is Teichmann then in the 7th position. Before we move back to Ryan van der Grijp. And he is behind his Pro-Am teammate and in a very nice position indeed, because now you can truly, madly, deeply work together.
Yes, you can, and for Dan van Zutphen, if you listen to his commentary, he's done a lot of work at Zandvoort in native Dutch speak. It is like listening to Max Verstappen commentate when you listen to him out there as he looks to bring it together. And unfortunately for him in Pro-Am, sometimes it can be said the only thing he's got going for him is the voice sometimes in terms of the pace compared to Max Verstappen. But he is getting quicker and quicker as far as he goes. He'll look at Diego Nicolas and Niels Boekhagen, and I wonder whether we're going to get a case of a multi-78 dart.
Maybe, but it depends, because Van der Grijp right now, he's in a happy position. He's trying to save a little bit of fuel here, and we'll see. They also got those couple of cars in front of them, so they need to deal with them first, I would think. And in any case, you have to have radio communication. You have to have communication between the teams, and I'm sure that you would here be fully aware of the situation, and there would have been a standing order, well, not an order, but more standing instruction from Zutphen going, okay, well, tell me when you want to get past, and there would be a signal, or it would be dealt with on a straight line in a situation where neither of them would lose any time, ideally. They want to make this in a way that they can gain. So we can see some team tactics here on display, but team tactics, it can be a dirty word sometimes, but it's not really something that you should avoid. Quite the contrary, and here you can see it, just running a little bit wide on the exit of the bus stop with Zutphen, and Van der Grijp not hesitating, where sometimes teammates would hesitate there. He's not hesitating, he's going down to the inside, he's taking the lead of this duo and saying, look, I need to lead us, because you right now don't necessarily have the pace, so I need to lead us, I need to get that draft back for us, and then we can work together towards a great result.
Well, they are soon going to be ticking over 30 minutes to go here. They've already put nearly an hour's worth of work in on the board. Van der Grijp then getting through on Dan van Zutphen, and now they will eye up Diego Nicolas and Niels Boekhagen. So now here's what's going to be clever in terms of the way this race looks. Gap between Johan Neshev and Trevor Vavrosky is 10 seconds out there on track. So Vavrosky only needs a 10-second shorter stop than what Johan Neshev can do. And that's the difference between maybe pitting with 30 minutes to go and pitting with 10 minutes to go. That's probably what you're eyeing up. The only thing you can say for Vavrosky at this moment here in terms of this race, as he's a little bit further down the road from these drivers, is he's got clean air at the moment, which means one thing: he can't save fuel, he just has to attack to reach Corbin Lenaway next, his US compatriot.
Exactly. Now, what you can do, he can save fuel, but that's not efficient. And that's exactly what you meant, is that when you're behind another car, you're catching up to them. Instead of making the pass, you lift off the throttle, you can coast into the corners. Lift and coast is what it's called. And you can do so about 300 meters, maybe even 400 meters before the corner. So you're not using any fuel when you're coasting into the corner. Whereas right now, Wawrowski doesn't have that advantage of the draft, so he has to run flat out all the way into the braking zone using that tiny bit more fuel. But those little increments, they do add up to 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 liters of fuel per lap. And over the course of a couple of laps, well, that's a couple of liters. And the problem with that in terms of pit stop times is that on the last stop, the more fuel you carry onto the last stop and the further that you can drag that last stop onto, the less fuel you need in the pit lane, which makes the stop itself shorter. So a full-length pit stop with this limited fuel tank, the pit stop time is around 20 to 21 seconds for these drivers. That's the time they're gonna spend stationary. So we see how Wawrowski's final stop is. You're looking at around 10 seconds. If he's, if he has to fill half a tank, it's going to be around 10 seconds. So that's the simple math.
We just saw a change of positions there between the two Absolute Motorsport Ace-Lift drivers. Roberto Kovac then losing out to Daniel Maggioni then for place. Just in front of them, there's your GT3 AM leader, 20 seconds to the good, the BMW of Simmer Esports Racing there, of Ivan Loskatov, who has got that control. Luke Sloats, by comparison, is 6 places back. And critical to note here, that's the other Simmer Esports car that is out there at the moment and running. So that's the difference that you're seeing right now. 20 seconds between them, and it's looking very comfortable for Loskatov. Just needs one nice run to get it back into play. Van der Grijp now eyeing up Boakhager. This will be for 9th on the road, and it will also still be for 7th. Out there in the pro category right now as Van der Grijp clears the AM, and in comes Norswaggi, so we're in final pit stop territory.
We absolutely are. Let's see how long that stop is. I will have to keep an eye on it, seeing the pit stop time and then comparing it later on. And we haven't then an idea about those final pit stops, about the time gained, time lost. Norswaggi 10. Fueling up. We got 28 minutes left. That should be almost a full-length pit stop, I would say, as he still is stationary in that box. Now gets going, back underway and onto the track. What he hopes will be a final time exiting pit lane in this race. I say hopes, anything can happen.
Anything can, and it usually does. Just want to get some housekeeping done out of the way. Ryan van der Grijp actually had a warning for minor contact responsibility, so he's got away with one. Ale Torres and Diego Nicolas both got a 5-second penalty for leaving too much of a gap at the last restart, and then Roberto Kovac also picked up 5 seconds worth of penalty for that as well. So those drivers all will have to either serve that or it will be added on to them post-race as they go. Dan van Zutphen then happy to sit on the back of Boakhager and of course his teammate Van der Grijp, who was the last driver to come in and make a stop. So even if we expect that the threat in this race is Trevor Wawrowski, Van der Grijp is only 4 seconds back of that, and he might need not a jug of fuel, not a fuel hose. Someone might have to get a paper cup out back from the water cooler to put the fuel in. In comes Neshev, in comes Kuk.
Yep, they're pitting simultaneously. We see a couple of cars then heading to the pit lane, but here is Jan Neshev in the pit lane. Let's see if he can get it stopped in time. He does. That was a very nice pit stop indeed. That's been well practiced. How about Kuk? Also not making a mistake. Not making a mistake this time, getting it stopped. And here we see the absolute thrill of cars sitting stationary. But the thing is, Jake, for us it is, because these are the deciding moments of this event. Here goes Neshev. That's a very nice, very well done stop.
It's a lovely stop, and he's only got Thomas Seyfarth there in front. Alessandro Vanozzi will look to try and go, and that's an important clearance if you can get by Vanozzi, because Vanozzi's going to have a very short last stop. Will he have himself okay into the International Horseshoe? Yes, clean air, perfect stop by Johan Neshev. Kuk's got a chase. Swaggy's out ahead of Corbin Lenaway. And so that's done a brilliant job on board with the 199 of Alessandro Vanozzi. And at least right now, Vanozzi will have pace, but the issue's going to be Johan Neshev, he's just going to have to G and O. He's just got to go because he'll realise that Oye Hugo is going to make his stop probably on this lap.
Yep. So you have to right now, you can't think about anything else than just going flat out. And you might say that that's the point of racing in it. Well, it quite isn't. There are points when you have to attack and there are points when you have to take it easy. This is the point where you have to absolutely attack.
Into the pits goes the Andorran Oye Hugo from GT3 Pro and overall lead. He's followed in by Sven Weber. It will give Trevor Favroski the race lead overall. And now you start questioning whether the strategy to pit as early as he did from second on that first safety car is worth it in the long run. GT Dynamics, they are known for making some very good strategy calls out there. They've got brilliant drivers in the mix, the likes of Ross Booth, for example, who is part of that GT Dynamics team. They are so smart.
They are. They're just... They know the racing. They know how to adapt on the fly. In a situation such as this one, you get that first caution, and they know exactly what to do. Now here is Hugo 10, but gonna be behind.
He is, and that's big. Johan Neshev, he's not only just got the jump, he's used a lap of fresh air on the undercut, and he's managed to put Alessandro Vanozzi in between them. Now, that is critical in terms of overall, because suddenly, Oye Hugo is going to have to burn the pipe at both ends if he wants to try and get himself away to jump on up. This is going to be a look around at everyone's last stop and saying, is this going to be enough that gives us what we need? It's a big old effort that they're going to need in the last 23.5 minutes, but for the moment, Johan Neshev is only hoping for one driver for category victory to come in and make a stop, and that is the Dutchman Mika Hoekstra.
Yep. So, still gonna have to wait, still gonna have to see and, you know, bide their time to see how this will turn out. They have an idea. As a driver, you have an idea. You sort of get your information from somebody from your team spotting, especially in a longer race like this. You get all sort of software feeding you information about how long do you need to be stationary for, how much fuel do you need, doing all these calculations. But ultimately, you just don't know until you see the situation for yourself. Now, the race is still not over by the time that these pit stops are done. There's still a lot of racing to go. They will still ultimately be racing to the line for these last 20 or so, 15 or so minutes, depending on how long they have left once the pit stops are done. But we are still on a sort of kind of holding pattern. Here you see Hugo 10 going down to the inside, just gaining a bit of track position there between the two Pro-Am cars.
Yeah, goes through on Vanozzi, who will be due one more stop and critically keeps himself with Neshev. If he wants pro victory, he's going to have to hold the coattails of 181 to get himself sorted. They are 34 seconds back of Favroski with one stop we feel remaining, but it will be short. Not just for him, but for Van der Grijp as well. We'll feel it's going to be short stopping. How good is the fuel? How good are the numbers going to be? And will it be enough to be in, out and away in 34 or even half a minute for Ryan van der Grijp? When you're down on pit, oh, car in the wall in front of Ryan van der Grijp. It's a big wreck for Callum Jones.
Oh, we'll see the pictures of it soon, but yeah, we're hearing Callum Jones in the wall, and yeah, that's the front end missing. Well, that car's not rare, that car's not medium, that car's not even medium rare, that car is well done.
Yeah, just started losing it over the curbs through the second part into the third part. You'll see it here. It's the backmarker racing car, which is 4 laps down in this race. Started losing it. You could argue he just didn't have enough speed to carry through the corner to get the rear spoiler working. Bang, hard into the safer barrier there on the right side. That car is as done can be. In comes Mika Hoekstra now for a stop. Torquio and Casper de Kort also make their final stops of the race. So this should promote Johan Neshev back to the Pro-Am lead here overall, but he's got his running stablemate, Oye Hugo, who has been his shadow for the last hour, right there behind him.
Yep, and at what point does the truce end? At what point they're starting to think about personal gain, starting to squabble a little bit. Right now, there's no real need to, because they're in different classes. Sure, there is overall, but they're in different classes. One's in Pro, one's in Pro. So in a lot of ways, that is an ideal situation. On a little screen, you can see Free Kukuten embroiled in a ding-dong battle there in that 4-car pack. And look who it is behind Kuku. That's Beber, who seemingly just seems to find himself again and again and again in these fights, in these 3-car squabbles, in these 4-car squabbles, with those bright rims and with those bright lights.
Yeah, it's a battle of 3 green cars, actually, which is making life difficult here. So Zwaggy for 07, Cook there for Manatee, and then NJB Performance for Sven Beber. So it's sometimes a little tougher to distinguish one car between the other, but Beber, after the entirety of his run, he's only 7 seconds off of the pace. Now, in comes Vavrovsky. This is the critical pit stop with 20 minutes to go. He's got to get 10 seconds less of a stop as we get the confirmation. Then there's race control. Moderate car responsibility there for the number 6, as now the stop will take place for Trevor Vavrovsky. Neshev and Hugo are making their way around turns 3 and 4 and on towards the tri-oval at this point. We wait to see when Vavrovsky is going to get off of his marks, because Neshev has been trying to throw everything he can. And there goes the car of Vavrovsky. This is going to be tight between them. They might come out side by side here or just slightly behind, and Vavrovsky will have half a chance here in this race. Critical stop, but now he'll have about, what did I say, 2 seconds? It's about 2 seconds.
It is 16.8 seconds stop.
There's the move. Hugo to the lead.
Yeah, Neshu saw Vavrovsky coming out of the pit lane and made the calculation. Okay, there has to be a fight. There has to be a fight between Vavrovsky. Hugo saw the move there essentially, and saw that there's gonna be a fight between Neshu and Vavrovsky for that position, for the running position. Right, I'm gonna get out of here at this point and make myself 2 seconds of a gap before these guys can settle it out, before these guys can sort it out. But crucially, we talked about pit stop times. 16.8 seconds for Trevor Vavrovsky. For Neshu, it was 20-second stop. So Vavrovsky would have needed to save about maybe 3 or 4 laps more here to essentially get ahead out of the pit lane. He's still in the fight, but he was not ahead.
Ryan van der Rijp makes that stop, and that should be the last one needed out there of everyone, because Camden Craft will be another driver to focus on. He's fallen back into the pack. The field is going to be cycled at the end of this stop, and Johan Neshev is second, who is just behind Oye Hugo, who is your race leader. We wait for Van der Rijp now to get himself off of the jacks and away with enough fuel in that car to go. They enter the tri-oval here, and Van der Rijp's going to be stationary for, I think, a little bit too long out there compared to these drivers. There goes the leader, there goes second, there goes third. Van der Rijp currently fourth. He might get out ahead of Zwaggy and Beber out there in the overall of this race. Beber desperate to catch Johan Neshev, but not managing it. Van der Rijp right now will be just ahead of that group. He will be coalesced into the group of Cook, of Zwaggy and Beber.
Yep, and that's not a group that you wanna be in if you wanna make a safe finish. Now, I'm not saying these guys are bad drivers. I'm saying that it's gonna be a ferocious battle pack. And
Vavrovsky down the inside, he chucks it in deep at the West Horseshoe, steals one on Johan Neshev. But here's what I ask you now here, Ozzy. Is this a placement game right now of where do you want to be heading to the last lap?
Yes and no. So I know that's a non-answer. I would make a great politician. But effectively, what you want to do here is you think about the last lap as we see a replay of Vavrovsky's move. Just, again, guy ahead, Neshu focusing on the car ahead, Vavrovsky realizing that situation, realizing, oh, he's not looking at his mirrors. Right, I'm gonna send it down the inside and trusting myself on the brakes. But what you're doing here, you're monitoring. So in that way, Neshu is in a great position. He can see where the guys he's fighting with are weak, where are they strong, where can he strike. He can start to formulate his plan by observing the 2 cars ahead. Now, ideally, you would want to be in a position where you can draft your way past the drivers in front of you in the last lap, but that is taking so much up to chance, that is leaving so much up to chance, because to do that, you need to maximize your exit of the bus stop, and well, we've seen how the bus stop can bite as well. Rowski goes side by side.
Yeah, trying hard there, contact twice, trying to get that turned in, and quite cleverly, Johan Neshev is in a fuel save mode at the moment. He's just trying to make sure he's got enough to attack with at the end of this race with 15 minutes to go, and so if you're going to play that card, he realises all I've got to do is beat the cars in front. Now, I'm looking around, Corbin Lenaway's got 10 seconds, but there is a black flag attached to Dan van Zutphen at the moment, and he will have it, I think, because he had a... Oh, that's why he's got it. He's crossed the pit lane and back out again. He's had a massive issue going into turn 1, has the 179.
Oh, that's not ideal for Zutphen. And yeah, that would give you a black flag, and that means that you have to come into the pit lane to serve it, which is, let's just say, not ideal for Zutphen and his race. Meanwhile, Wawrowski, I'm gonna be curious to see what he does here. Does he go to the inside of the bus stop? Yes, he does.
Look, both drivers want to lead this one from the front. Oye Hugo's going to let him have it here on the brakes. Yep. And they have now dropped Johan Neshev here, who I think is just trying to protect his advantage of 3.5 seconds. But Sven Bebber, if he can claw this back using Ryan van der Rijp as basically his tow rope to get himself up there, that's going to give Pro-Am a big scare late in terms of this race. A lot to try and uncover. GT3 the most solid of them all. Loskotov 28 seconds clear of Sloat as it goes. But Oye Hugo here, I'm just going to sit back here. I don't need to be in the race lead for this one. Wawrowski's put himself into position. But Oye Hugo, he's looking to go back to back.
Yeah, so something I'm going to mention here. Oye Hugo had a 20.8 second stop 6 laps ago, right? Ian Neshew had a 20-second stop flat 7 laps ago.
Caution! Oh, yellow flag's out. This is going to change the whole complexity of this race. We might be down to a 5-minute shootout.
Does a caution happen anytime I start talking about fuel?
Yes.
Do I need to be careful with my powers?
Also, yes. I'm looking around. We got Max Kraus down on the lane at the moment, and this might be why. Going through the bus stop, misses the apex on entry, overcooks the car in, and what it used to be grass now, ouch, that's a big hit, and the 103 now suddenly brings everyone back in. The saving grace of Van der Rijp and also Bebber, Zwaggy, and Cook.
Yeah, and I'm gonna mention this, just throwing it out there. It might have been the saving grace for Neshew as well. Cause
if he was worrying about fuel, you're absolutely right there, Ozzy. If it's his saving grace, he can attack on this restart.
Exactly, because I was looking at the pit stop times, and now it might have been Hugo just being careful, conservative. But the way I was looking at Neshew, and he was kinda, you said it, he was lifting and coasting, but at that point there is no point to save fuel really at the final stint when you're behind other cars, just risking losing the battle. You kind of want to use all of it. Now you might have to sometimes save a couple of deciliters, like 0.1, 0.2 liters, but you wouldn't have to go into full fuel saving mode unless you were carrying some sort of fuel trouble where you fueled up maybe a bit too little. So yeah, this absolutely is a saving grace, especially for Neshew, if the theory is correct. Now I might be entirely wrong in this. It wouldn't be the first time, it certainly won't be the last time, but that's my theory and I'm rolling with it. Wawrowski, Hugo, they were good on fuel, Neshew, not so much.
So this now sets itself up. We're down to 11.5 minutes in this race, and this safety car has come at a time where all of these drivers are now starting to turn around, look at each other and say, we think that sometimes endurance racing is put as a sprint. We have 30-minute sprints and 60-minute masters, but now it's 5 minutes. This is as hot lap, 3-lap shootout as it gets, and they will look around at it, and this is where you got to throw the old 2021 line. You only need 1 racing lap.
Yeah, exactly. Let's hope the end result is not quite as controversial. So now you're thinking, okay, what am I going to do? Where am I going to attack? The problem is that there are few places here, only few places where you can expect and anticipate an attack. Into turn number 1, down the inside, that's the most obvious. That is where everybody's thinking of attacking, and that is why you gotta close it off. You saw it in real life Daytona 24 hours as well, where you saw people closing off the inside and driving guys all the way down the yellow line, double yellow line, into turn number 1. Then you got the horseshoe. The first one, if you find yourself getting a great exit from turn number 1, and that's the counterplay. The guy's gonna close off the inside into turn number 1. You're gonna swing it way wide round the outside. I know you can't use the esports line anymore, but you can still use a wide line, a racing line round the outside, get yourself a better exit, get a great run through the double kink, and then effectively send it down to the inside onto the horseshoe. Now you gotta do it down the inside, because outside that's full of marbles, that's full of rubble, that's sort of full of all sorts of unpleasantries that are gonna wreak havoc on your tires. Then if that doesn't work out, you got the second horseshoe after the kink, where you can use the kink with cold tires to set up an overtake. And if that doesn't work out, you got to run onto the bus stop and at the exit of bus stop. But all of these plays, they also have a counterplay. So while ideally you would want to leave it at the exit of the bus stop, when there is no time to make a counterplay if you get a better run, unless somebody's gonna squeeze you into the wall, which is what they're not allowed to do by the rules and regulations. You leave yourself vulnerable to a counterplay. So that's where the data comes in. That's where all this time, all these 80 minutes that have passed so far of gathering data on other drivers coming. You make mental notes. Where are they strong? Are they good on the brakes? If so, don't make a move into the horseshoe, you're gonna lose out. Are they good at top speed? Good, let's try and make a move down the infield, etc., etc. It's a lot of thinking that's going on right now.
Well, let's start getting some housekeeping out of the way. We're over 80 minutes into this race. Any penalties that get applied from this point onwards are going to be post-race penalties. So any race result is going to be unofficial. Look how aggressive Barney is waving that flag. He's trying to get his job right now safe and secure. Look at how he waves. As the
flag is wet.
Yeah, track is wet. It's the way they're starting to look at it. There is also a 10-second penalty for Corbin Lenaway, which is there for a moderate contact responsibility. So that 10 seconds will be added on, and he's in 8th place at the moment. So that will be a huge hit for Corbin in terms of what he wants to take coming out of this race. But look at those lights. They are off of the BMW M2 safety car. We'll be back to green then in the panhandle of Florida, Daytona Beach. Right now, we are halfway between Miami and Jacksonville, and this is going to be as much of a scrap as everyone is looking at, and they're probably staring down the barrel of 3 racing laps to decide who is going to get what. And here's the most important thing about this. We could have a Pro-Am take it all.
We could. We absolutely could. And what a result that would be for Johan Nesju, just as a Pro-Am, taking it all. And mind you, these guys are categorized into these 3 classes according to their perceived ability, which is to say their iRating, their driver rating. So Nesju is in a Pro-Am. He was effectively classified as a Pro-Am driver going into this year. What a leap in performance it has been for Johan Nesju to be right in the mix with these pro drivers. Trevor Wawrowski, he's a GSRC legend.
He absolutely is, and he has done so well. Back when we had the major series coverage, he was always up there, and he was always right place, right time. Now, cars will get the wave around, and the 2 drivers you have been Miroslav Sotorov and Thomas Seyfarth. They have been allowed to get their lap back, and it keeps them out of the way for the fighters. Oh, that's close. They're starting to really check up here. Oye Hugo wanting to go back-to-back, but Wawrowski realizing here that as far as the overall standings go, he's down in 12th. He has had 2 rounds that arguably have not shown his best light out there this season. This will get his season back in line with Road Atlanta. Then the next round, the 4th of 6 to come along with it. So I think you stare down the barrel of drivers who know what they're capable of, and everyone knows that it's all or nothing at this stage. This could be the most aggressive restart we have seen through the Le Mans chicane here behind this safety car here, the BMW M2 safety car. I doubt we'll see another one thrown. If we do see another safety car thrown, that will be that as far as this race will go, and the race will finish under caution. This is the 3rd safety car of this race. We had 2 early on. We then had an hour of green flag running, and then this final caution coming out with about 15 minutes to go. We will be down to under 5 minutes of racing when we get ourselves back to running. And Trevor Favroski, who pitted on lap 2 of the race to get an alternative strategy going, when he looked around at Oye Hugo, at Johan Neshev, at Ryan van der Grijp, who did something very similar. He's given himself the platform. Now, can he execute? Don't count Sven Beber out of this race. He wants to chase. In comes the safety car. Lights then, get yourself ready. 4.5 minutes remaining in this race. Green flag in the air, and we're back to racing. And how aggressive are you going to be on the start? Here goes Ryan van der Grijp, 3 wide there behind, as they now start to work out. Watch out, Oye, they're everywhere. Beber's now going to have a chance. Van der Grijp trying to make this move up to 2nd. He's not going to get there. He understeers wide in the marbles. Neshev back up to 3rd. Favroski's got gap. Big smoke in the background, 1 spins.
Wow, but everybody makes it out. Big Smoke did not betray them this time. Here you can see Van der Grijp then going around the outside. Oh, that's Beber! Beber losing it, and Van der Grijp losing it, spinning out, and you can see the live reaction. He's absolutely got it, Jake.
Well, he would be. That's not his fault. Car lost it behind, tagged his rear, and now a chance of a huge result for the championship leader. It all goes wrong. Another spinner at the West Horseshoe then gets dumped to the outside. Didn't quite catch who it was. It was Michael Teichmann in the Lion GP Academy car. There goes another. Then Frank Cook & Co. looking around at it. It's a dramatic restart to this race, but look at Trevor Favroski. He's got a 2.5. Enosis car around, Cook around. They're all around.
Oh, sorry, not. Yeah, that's not. I think that was one of the Lamborghinis going around. Kukuk then going, Beber going. Beber is somehow 2nd in class despite all of this. But yeah, having a lot of calamity here right on the restart. You can see them not leaving anything up to chance, and at the same time leaving everything to chance. Taking all these risks, going 2 wide, 3 wide right from the get-go with the cold tires. That was a very, very interesting move to go around the outside with cold tires on turn number 1, and that ended up leading into positions lost, leading into Van der Grijp getting into that situation, which was, mind you, not his fault. And as we are talking about all this, we talked about GT3AM also earlier. Loskotam and Slots are now 2/10 apart from each other.
Yeah, I think it was a case of Boakhager was the car that went around. Marcella Caserta up to 7th. Norzwagi and Camden Craft started 16th and 23rd on the grid. They are 4th and 6th. Oh, bye-bye! Caserta, damage on the front, goes right to the middle, and there's going to be more spins that find themselves around. One of the Enosis cars there, Darman Zutphen, caught up. Kovac okay as they go. They're at 2 laps to go. The gap is now almost 2 seconds out there at the front of this field, and suddenly it's just you need a calm head to get the result you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that this has been an absolute hockey fight of a race, and the lesson here is do not go up against Trevor Favroski in a hockey fight. That's his game. That's his tango. That's what he knows. Meanwhile, riding on boards with the Simit Esports racing driver Lux Slots, and just looking at 2nd place in AM, sure, there's only 2 drivers, but they are separated by less than 1 second. Both can still go for the class win despite how unbelievable of a prospect that was just 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's Darman Zutphen, no rear wing, trying to give that clearance away. 2 cars in the middle. Joppis Simons is one of them from South Africa. You've got Sven Landgraaf there for Germany, who's in front of them. Then you get to Ivan Loskatov, who is class lead as it stands. And the last lap about to start then for Trevor Wawrowski as he looks to get that gap. Second still on between Hugo and Neshev on overall. Nuzwagi could get second here on the final lap of this race. It all sets itself up for what is a showdown here around this Daytona circuit. Now working through the S's and trying to say, look, this is all we've got left to play for. This has been a tough race by every stretch of the imagination. Now working hard. Is there drive off the exit? Yes. Hugo will take about 2.5 car lengths then of advantage. It's 1 car length for Nozwagi, but Neshev, who has been very measured in this race as the leader of GT3 Pro-Am, can't afford to get caught up in this battle, knowing that he will take points maxima, heading himself over towards the next round of the championship. That one then at Road Atlanta. So they know how big a race like this is going to be as they will hit the oval banking for the final time. Great drive by the Aston Martin. That's going to give a little bit of room. The gap 1.1 in GT3 AM. Pro-Am, the gap is 6 seconds, and so Hoekstra with a chance of getting that second place away from Sven Baba is not going to get himself close enough at the moment. They now know it's about shaking that draft because this run is the most important. It's foot to the floor, timers out as far as they go. Any sort of drive is critical, and Hugo's got an okay run out of it then in this race for second. Car 3 at GT Dynamics is going to have the romp of this field. Nobody could catch him. He's outsmarted the lot. GT Dynamics have a great driver, and it's in the form of Trevor Wawrowski, who will reach the tri-oval and win at Daytona. Look out for second, because Neshev's close, but not close enough. He'll take the Pro-Am honours, and we'll wait back then for the likes of Ivan Loskatov, who will be heading towards the line as your GT3 AM winner on a field that really didn't have much for it. So Loskatov getting the job done there for Simit, and that a day of true grind here at Daytona.
Absolutely, and commiserations for Ryan van der Grijp. He was right in the mix right until the final restart, and then well, 2 bad corners, and that's what ended it. First round the outside into the first corner, 10 getting spun out, but his loss is Trevor Wawrowski's gain. And I said earlier, Jake, Trevor Wawrowski, a GSRC legend. This is why. I mean, there could be an earthquake, there could be a tornado, there could be a twister, there could be any sort of calamity, and somehow riding down the wave of lava, flowing hot lava on a surfboard down an exploding volcano is Trevor Wawrowski onto the victory.
He's done wonderfully here today. Let's go through all your results. We'll start with GT3 Pro, where it's 2.5 seconds. The margin at the end for Wawrowski over Oye Hugo, with Nozwagi then picking up 3rd place. What a drive from him today. Camden Craft, by the way, started 23rd overall and is 4th in class to finish in the 46, with Corbin Lenaway 5th, but with 10 seconds of penalty, as Freight Cook will profiteer off of that. Alessandro Torchio will be 7th ahead of Marcello Caserta, with Ryan Fuqua in 9th, and Ron van der Grijp. They're having a huge moment on that final restart from what was looking like a fight for second to go all the way back to 10th. Your final 3 drivers, Diego Nicolas, who is there, as well as the other 2 drivers who could not get exactly what was needed then as they go, because you've got Casper de Court, who is there, Daniel Mills, and then as well the likes of Michele Velazzi out, as well as Nick Davis, Davide Pezzi, and Dylan Platt in that section. There is GT3 Pro-Am with Aussie.
Yes, Ian Neshew taking out the victory, fighting for overall win in this race. Not quite able to get it in this race, but still a very, very, very definite class victory for Neshew. He did an outstanding job. Sven Beber had enough action to last an entire season throughout these 90 minutes, still able to come off with a 2nd place, a great result. Mika Hoekstra able to climb up through the field and claw his way to 3rd. Then it's Daniel Macchioni in 4th and Alessandro Vanozzi in 5th. Roberto Stefano Kovac in 6th, and Sven Landgraf in 7th. You got Jopi Simons in 8th, Michael Teichmann in 9th, and Stefan Jones rounding out the top 10 in your GT3 Pro-Am field. Then we get on to the next page. Dan van Zutphen in 11th, Niels Baukhage in 12th. You see the list of retirements: Baukhage, Max Kraus, Marvin Baer, sadly onto hibernation. Miroslav Sodirov in 15th, Thomas Seifert, Callum R. Jones, and Yilian Dimitrov, all classified as out of this race. Gonna run you through the GT3 AM results. Sadly, there is only 3 drivers, even Loskutov, Luke Slots, and Richie Cohan in third 10, but Loskutov and Slots fighting it out all the way to the last lap with less than a second separating them. So good job for Loskutov and Slots getting the podium here as well. Jake?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant then in terms of their results, and we have seen that with some brilliant running. We are going to get a chance to talk to some of our drivers, but Ozzy Pahaka has very quickly ran himself down the paddock. He's caught up with your race winner overall, the one and only Trevor Vavrosky.
Well, Trevor, we said that it was going to be a tight race. It was going to be a race decided only in the last laps at Daytona, as it often tends to be, but that was maybe a little bit more excitement than you bargained for.
Yeah, you know, it's hard to say whether or not that caution was a good thing there at the end or not. It was going to be a really interesting race with how the fuel situation was playing out. I think the guys behind me had to save a little bit, but I was also sitting there looking at my calculators, and I might have been a lap shy because the race was going to go longer, so might have been some weird shenanigans trying to make sure the race was only a certain number of laps, but ended up getting the caution, which meant we were all good to go, and then it was just a straight fight to the end, and I think I did a really good job on my tire prep and was able to open up a gap, and then once I broke the draft, it was that was it.
Yep, and tell us about your strategy calls in this race. Now, you are an experienced endurance driver. You are experienced in these long races. We've seen you. I've had the pleasure of commentating on many of your races, but tell us about your feels and whether there were any doubts when you came into the pit lane first time around and noticed that you were just about the only one to do so.
I was a little surprised to see I was the only one to do so. I was really agonizing over that call. I knew it was going to be... I knew it was potentially going to take away the splash at the end. And I figured it would throw me in the middle of the pack, and it was going to be, you know, just a matter of, can I stay close enough to the leaders to have that fuel edge on the pit stops? And then no one else pit, and my heart sank. And then about, 2 laps in after that caution, I think I had made up like 10, 12 positions, and I was like, okay, we're still in this. And I think because of just how tight the other guys were on fuel, that really restricted their pace, and it allowed me to just basically push flat out. I think I think Ryan and a couple other guys were doing a similar strategy, and we were really moving through the field. So it made it a very entertaining race from my perspective, but if I'm honest, I had no idea where I was going to exit pits on that final stop. So when I saw that they were only about a second up the road, I was like, okay, we are 100% in this thing for the win.
Yeah, and you kind of needed that in terms of the overall standings too, because you were sitting in 12th place overall in GT3 Pro here in this series. Road America not going so well, Nürburgring not going ideally, but here at Daytona you were able to claim the win. Does that give you that little bit of extra boost of confidence heading on to another familiar stomping ground in the name of Road Atlanta?
If I'm being honest, I'm just happy to finish a race with a clean car. It's been a real struggle in these GT Open races. There's been a lot of chaos, and I haven't done a very good job of taking care of business and qualifying to put myself in a position to be in a good spot to avoid that. And so I was happy to do it here, and I don't know. We'll see what happens at Road Atlanta. Hoping for the best.
Yeah, and look out for that call from from Bill Guerin to join the US Olympic team perhaps this winter in Milan, because you known yourself to be good in a hockey fight, and that's what the last sprint to the line was. Well, Trevor Wawrowski, if you have anyone you would like to give a shout out to and anyone you would like to say a hi to, then now is your chance.
Yeah, just shout out to all the guys over at GT Dynamics. I mean, we've been working on this setup since like early December, preparing for the Daytona 24. I think unlike a lot of these other guys that were in the Lamborghini or the Porsche, or the cars that were a little bit better for the official, we were Mercedes all the way through, and it allowed us to really dial in a really nice car. So shout out to Mike, Skyler, Rob, Ross, Nick, all the guys over there. Just, I mean, putting in thousands of laps. So really proud.
Yeah, and a well-deserved victory there, Trevor. Congratulations to you and the entire GT Dynamics team, and well, see you at next time in Road Atlanta.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, there you have it from one fantastic driver in Trevor Wawrowski, but over to your GT3 Pro-Am winner, where Johan Neshev is stood by with us right now. And Johan, you've got a very busy week ahead of you, or a very busy day ahead of you, with lots of Daytona races, with your next one happening in about, 45 minutes, or if not half an hour at this point. So getting yourself prepped, not just for one race, but for two, not just one GT3 car, but for two GT3 cars. How critical was it then in terms of your day-to-day to get that prep in, that practice, to get yourself up to speed, especially seeing as you got a very important pole as a Pro-Am?
Yeah, I dedicated this whole week to practicing for both races. I was quite lucky that we did the Daytona 24 with the Mercedes, so I had a bit of practice, and I drove with the same setup. Everything was the same. And yeah, it's kind of sad that I have to drive another car today, completely different car, a lot slower in my opinion, the Mustang. But yeah, I practiced a lot for that too, and I hope for some luck.
Talk about this race then, because you led the line share of this race. You had an hour where it was you in control. A Pro-Am was going to win this race. The final 25 minutes looked like fuel was going to be a little bit sketchy. Was that why the pace sort of slowly faded away in the final moments of this one for you?
Exactly why. In the last 30 minutes, I saw that I have to save a lot of fuel, because then I would do an extra stop. And it was gonna be quite close at the end. In my opinion, we wouldn't have made it, but thanks to the safety car, and I don't know, that was a lot of work. We made it, I was safe, and yeah, I probably was going to be down a lot of places if it wasn't for the safety car.
An advantage then against Niels Boekhager, who had an issue late in the race. A big advantage over Sven Beber then, who was chasing you basically the entirety of the way. You're now going to be walking in with what looks to be an over 60-point advantage heading into the second half of this season in Road Atlanta. Do you feel like at this point, all you need to do to get the Pro-Am honours is just put 3 consistent results on the table?
Yeah, that's the plan, but it's too early to say for now. A lot of things can happen, 3 races, I can crash in all of them, hopefully not. But yeah, I will try to be consistent. It's not necessary to win every race, just try to stay around them and hope for the best.
Well, no worries at all. We'll see you next time out, and I'll see you in about half an hour's time. Johan Neshev there joining us then from Negative Delta Sim RT. They're getting a brilliant result out there. But 2 drivers have found their way the way of Ossian Puhaka. He stood by with Luke Sloat and with Ivan Loskotov.
Yeah, and let's start with you, Ivan. Both of you driving in the GT3 AM category, and even it was a class win for you. How was it out there?
It was so hard, I'll be honest. many incidents and many safety cars. We changed the strategy multiple times. It was quite hard.
Yeah, it was certainly a learning experience. Now I have to ask you, since you are in the AM category, tell us about your experience, and by an extension, Luke can join in on this too. How much experience do you have on sim racing, iRacing in general? Was it your first time racing a longer race at Daytona, or do you have this sort of background, the information that the rest of the field has on what kind of a race it's going to be?
I started. Luke.
Oh, okay. In terms of experience in iRacing and league racing, I have, I think, around a year and 2 months of experience, but I did multiple leagues with endurance races, 2.5-hour races. Also around Daytona. It's a fun track, but it's really hard, of course, to overtake, to follow also a bit, because of the difference in the cars. The one car is better than the other on exits and turning and stuff. But overall, it's a nice track to drive with all these with the people. Of course, there were some crashes in the race and some incidents, but overall, if the race just goes smooth, like halfway in the race, it was just a green flag and full push. I think it's really nice to drive here and with the people that drive here.
And you got anything to add, Terry, even? Well, okay. So yeah, that's the reason I was asking is because it's a wholly different experience. Some of these guys have a decade of experience from racing. You guys a little bit less. So congratulations to both of you on finishing on the podium. And one more little thing I want to ask before I let you go. You two are teammates, so I'm gonna direct this to Even. You two are teammates, so how was it driving together out there, especially in the last stint when you were essentially racing each other for the class win?
I think I think you're there.
No, you look see you.
Oh, okay, his English is pretty bad, so I'll do it for him. No, it's fine. For the final restart, yeah, it was really excited for us both, especially as teammates. It was close. Of course, it was within we finished 1 and 2 within a second of each other. But because of the restart, it also made the big gap really small. We got to fight for the win, and we came in first and second. So overall, we're pretty happy with it, and the close racing was also pretty good between teammates.
Well, that indeed it was. It must have been a fun experience, and congratulations to both of you, Ivan and Luke. And if you have anyone you would like to give a shout out to, then feel free to do so.
Yeah, we of course shout out to our engineers. We had on short time 2 engineers. We are pretty happy that they helped us manage all the stints and look out after us.
Yeah, well, thank you and congratulations, and see you next round.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it here with some amazing racing that has taken its place here in the SimRacing Republic GT Open here today. We've also got sports car action that'll be coming along soon. But in terms of when we are with you next, we have just hit halfway in terms of the season. So the second half of this season will take place at Road Atlanta. You can catch that on the 22nd of February once again. It will be at 2:15 UTC for that one, 9:15 Eastern. So make sure that you get yourself jumping in for what is some strong racing around the home of Petit Le Mans. In terms of what we've got coming up next on the horizon, there is a lot of great sim racing. Classic Lotus Grand Prix, that's going to be taking place in about half an hour, 35 minutes from the Hockenheim ring. And so keep an eye out on that amazing battling. Skip Barbers will be back as they will also travel to Germany, but to the Motorsport Arena Oschersleben. That will be some fun racing. The Sports Car Championship will return to action next week. They will be heading to the Circuito de Jerez Angel Nieto. So that will be a very big battle that will come through. And then Grand Prix Legends is going to be back on with racing action. They'll be heading to the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez or the Circuito Magdalena Michuca, whichever way you like to call it. From the entire team that's brought this show over to you as part of a Genesis Extreme production, from Christian Deploy, from Dougie Beard's cameras, from Ozim Puhaka alongside me, my name is Jake Sperry. A day for many that they will look and say, I wanted that. It was a crazy day. A lot of drivers could have proven themselves, but it's strategy that proves itself stronger than anything else. It was a great battle in GT3 AM, one in the way of Ivan Loskotov. In AM, or in Pro-Am, it was as close as it could be, but it was nearly victory overall for Johan Neshev. He'll take that with pride, knowing he's got pace as some of the best pros out there. But sometimes he's Mr. GSRC on here, the way he drives, the way he's got confidence, the way he can do it any car, any time, any place. It's, well, a good win in round 3 for car number 3. Everybody stand up, a P1 for Trevor Vavrovsky.
This is iRacing.